Yo, yo.
Hey,
Hello.
how you doing?
How's it, guys?
Good, and you?
How's everyone?
Fantastic. Why is my screen like I need to sit like here in the corner of my room?
Yeah, we've got 3 panels here. Like, we need to
Viewers.
get into this. I'm trying to also like find the center.
Find the box.
You guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, brother Gil.
Nah, something's
Are
wrong.
you up? No, we
All
can hear
3
you.
of us on the live.
Okay, no. Hold on.
Yeah, you said
Now
this
you
is a
are.
WhatsApp live. Like I saw your LinkedIn post there.
No, not a WhatsApp
Oh.
live.
Well, what did you post then?
Just a live. Every week we go live on social. For those watching, we've got 6 people tuning in already. Armando, how's it, bud? Mount Rushmore of marketing gurus. slowly appreciate that. Very flattering. My face feels very big on the screen. Nice to have you guys on board. Let me do a quick introduction. So everybody who is live, if you've got a question, please let us know. I think from our side, we're here to answer any marketing business questions. We're not claiming to be perfect, but we have some experience in marketing. And we have some experience in building businesses. So we would like to share a perspective. And we believe there might be some value in it for you. Let me add Gilbert back on stage. Yeah, Gil, are you back now?
Yeah. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
So cool.
If you're live, drop your name. Just tell us where you're tuning in from. It would be nice to get to know you a little bit better. I see Armando's on, and there's a couple of other people joining, which is great. Just leave a comment where you're from, and let us know if you have any questions that we can answer for you. Feel free. This is really informal. You can see this is not the world's most highly produced show. We just wing it, and we just have normal conversations. Then I want to quickly introduce you guys watching to Vickers. Vickers is our COO of the group. Gilbert, you guys probably know. You see his face on podcasts a lot and some of the lives. Gilbert is our general manager in the agency, and myself as well. So we're on this live. Vickers is quite the lead gen expert. Gilbert is quite the e-commerce expert. And I think all 3 of us can add some value to any questions that you might have. So please fire away if you just drop it in the comments, any thing specific that you want to know. I see Armando says Mount Rushmore of marketing gurus. Thank you for that. Antonio Don, is TikTok advertising worth it? Is TikTok advertising worth it? So we've experimented a bit with. Yeah, I mean, again, we can just share a perspective, right? I'm not saying this is the alpha and omega of whether TikTok advertising is going to work for your business. There's a couple of nuances. First nuances is like, I think it's industry dependent. Some industries will crush it and some industries will struggle a little bit and might have to get innovative with how they present themselves on the platform. The problem with TikTok is that the attention span is so short that you have to, and people go there to be entertained. So you have to be very creative with how you create ads for TikTok platform, purely because of the fact that people have a very short attention span on TikTok specifically, and they want to be entertained. So you have to create an ad that seems like it's not an ad. So it has to be some form of entertaining. And then at the same time, it has to get them to click on the call to action in a very short time frame. So that said, we've tested TikTok advertising, and we've spoken to like some really big agencies overseas. We're all in the mastermind with some other agency owners, and we've actually asked them this question because in South Africa we have our perspective. We wanted to see what the other people's perspective is across the pond, and most of them said Facebook is still a better ROI for your money if you're focusing on D2C brands. So if you're a D2C online brand, then Facebook still yields better return for your money. So is TikTok advertising worth it? I think so. I think it's something that you can do in conjunction with Facebook. I think it's a very good awareness play. The CPMs are quite low, so it's a very strong awareness play. I don't know if you're going to have the same ROAS, but it's something that you can test out for your business. They've got some lead generations. So lead generation forms. Vix, maybe you can touch on that, because I think we've tried it out for a couple of clients in the past, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think all I wanted to add to that was the fact that it's like when you look at investments, it's like you don't want to chuck all of your investment and all of your money into something like crypto. I think you have your main platform, and I think as we mentioned, Meta is the primary platform where I think a lot of brands are still finding really consistent growth and success. And I think TikTok is one of those platforms that you can add 10 or 20% of your marketing budget into, and test it out and try out some strategies and see how that works for you. But I think it's still diversifying between platforms is super important. And I think that's where I see TikTok at the moment, at least from our perspective.
Gil, you've tried to experiment with TikTok as well. What's your thoughts?
Yeah, we have. I think the one biggest challenge was actually the tracking and measuring the performance, because it's not as well equipped, unfortunately, for the local markets. Just in terms of simple integrations, like Shopify and Facebook is easy, but then you get platforms like TikTok, which aren't actually well supported right now. From last time I checked, in terms of tracking, so the tracking was a bit of a challenge, but also when looking at TikTok, it's very heavily focused on very authentic, organic type of content. It's entertainment type of content, short time span, like you mentioned. If you've got someone, I mean, it's almost like you need to have the ability to generate this type of content on a weekly basis, specifically for TikTok, doing those little TikTok reels and TikTok challenges. And those are the things that people are there for. There's a lot of entertainment factors. So it's also seeing how your brand can weave into that, to be honest. But if you don't necessarily have, that creative arsenal behind you and someone to create the content for you, I think it may be a bit of a challenge for you to start running TikTok and see some success from it.
I've seen on my side that ad fatigue on TikTok just happens so much quicker than on Meta. Like it's literally, it happens like at double the rate, double the speed. And there's maybe reasons for that, but I think on TikTok, like, people are there to be entertained. People are there for fresh, new content. They have a very short attention span. So it is quite tricky, and you're going to have to be very strategic and psychologically driven in order to get those ads to really have a high ROAS. Cool. I think next question, Armando says, guys, I know you're killing it with the glute goal and sentimental. What's the update on plush cleaning and challenges of scaling a local biz? Shame. I mean, killing it is it's all relative. Shame, Armando. I appreciate you saying that. But I mean, also everything is relative, right? I think those brands have grown quite nicely. Glute specifically, Sentimental is doing really well. Plush cleaning is doing very well. Vix, I mean, you've been heading that up with with the team on the plush side. So maybe give us some context on how that's going, and also some of the restrictions that we've had around scaling a local business. And also, what Armando doesn't know is that we've had shares in a local beauty clinic that we've now, we're exiting that partnership just because of the restrictions of how to scale it. We're doing that fairly and respectfully, obviously, but yeah, maybe give us some insights there, the lessons we've learned.
Yeah, the lessons. Anyway, from a lessons perspective in the beauty business, I think the main thing that comes to mind there is the fact that we're a bit restricted in terms of location and scaling that. I think we've done what we could from a Meta perspective. We've redone the website. We've pushed Meta ads. I think at a point we were spending about 40K a month on just Meta ads for the beauty business. We haven't tapped into Google as of much because we were trying to crack the code on Meta. I think we've tried all different kinds of creatives and all of that, and we've been generating leads. We've implemented WhatsApp automations. There's a lot of stuff we really did to maximize the effort on the beauty business side, and we've effectively doubled the business from a revenue perspective. I think we went from about 90 to 100K to, I think our base month was about 179 to 180K. And issues are, like, if we wanted to scale that further, I think location plays a big role in that. And I think we're going to have to invest in a bit more of a higher LSM area, location-wise, and do shop fitting and all of that. And I think from an investment perspective and from a cash flow perspective, like, you'll have to drop for 500, 600K on just expanding that if you wanted to, relocate, do shop fitting, all of that. And then you're still at risk because you still need to figure out, does that location work? by then you kind of like deep in from an investment perspective. So scalability wise, I think we've just kind of like called it there and just said, look, I think this is more suited to continue running for the owner on by yourself and continue that business.
I also
that's
want to add there is
beauty.
like we've had, I want to just add that we've had 2 branches, right? And there's a lot of beauty businesses that are killing it, but I think the lesson we've learned, and we knew this, is location is very, very important. We've always known that location is important, but I think it's literally makes or breaks the business. Like we gave it, maybe we attributed to 60 to 70% of the success to location. And I think, I don't know about you, Vix, but I think location and where you find yourself is about 80 to 90% of the success. It's like you can target people on Meta, but if they don't want to go to that area of town in order to go and claim that awesome offer, they are going to pick someone who's maybe a bit more expensive, who's a bit more convenient. Like convenience is such a big thing, and people want to go somewhere where they enjoy that part of town, where the energy is good, where there's lots of foot traffic. Like people just prefer to be around other people with good energy. So ideally you want to be in a good part of town where there's good energy, where things are happening, it's buzzing. And there's also a lot of other convenience elements around, like a shopping center, spa, Woolies, or all those kind of stuff plays a huge role in drawing foot traffic. And if we wanted to scale that business further, like it would require like really like hundreds and hundreds to millions of rands in order to grow. And then you also have to ask yourself, what's the actual glass ceiling of one branch and the profitability of it? And then the only way to scale further is you have to outlay more capital to create more branches, or you have to franchise. And we looked into franchising, actually, funny enough, right? So it's understanding that the opportunity cost, that's where we find ourselves, is just the opportunity cost. Can we do it? Probably. But can we grow other businesses a lot quicker and faster with the same amount of money or less? 100%. So, and I think that's just where we found ourselves. But let's touch on Plush, because I mean that's grown quite nicely. There's a difference between Plush and a beauty business, obviously, because of how the business operates. One operates remotely, where you drive out to the customer, and the other one is people have to come to you. So you go to the customer in terms of Plush, and the customer comes to you in terms of a beauty business. And that's quite of a big differentiator, I think, when it comes to local businesses.
Yeah, it makes it a lot more scalable. I think, Plush is doing really well. I think we I don't know, I can probably share revenue figures, but I think we've taken that business from 0 last year, March, to I think this month we projected to do 270 or something, 270K. So yeah, that business has scaled quite nicely, and I think we've also put a lot of pressure on scaling that business quite aggressively, and pushing boundaries really to make that happen, and taking risks because we can afford to take risks, and investing in new teams, equipment, and investing in more ad spend every month. So yeah, we're consciously scaling that in all aspects really. We just hired a new receptionist, so we have 3 office team members now and about 10 team members in the field. We're buying our 3rd car now. We're in the process of that, by the way. So yeah, like that's scaling quite nicely. I don't know if there was any specific question around what we do.
No, I think it's just teams, right? I think the restriction there is just teams. It's not so much the location, but it's purely just teams, and every team needs its own vehicle, and you need about 2 or 3 or 4 staff members, and they need to be trained, and so all these things take time. Like 270,000 rand doesn't sound like a lot per month, but I mean we've gone from 0 to, let's say, hypothetically a 3 million rand a year business, which is not, I mean, that's not really massive, but it's got, the nice thing is it's quite consistent. It's never run at a loss unless we strategically needed it to. So I think that's the nice thing about the cleaning side of things, is that it is quite consistent. Where an e-com store, and Gil will tell you, is that one day you're smiling, and then the next day, you in panic and your blood pressure is high. And I know we've had our challenges with Meta and all these channels. It is more scalable, but I mean, what do you feel about the consistencies there, Brother Gil?
Yeah, look, it's definitely is scalable. It's just you run into aspects around Meta and policy violations and this and that, and even if it's not even really a violation that you created, it's just a case of the system itself picks up things that maybe it shouldn't, or whatever the case may be. So scaling, you know how it goes when it comes to scaling. everyone believes that they're going to go from a 2x to a 5x to an 8x, and that's not necessarily the case, right? You'll be one day, 2 day, you have a nice healthy ROAS 5x, and then the next day it actually just completely plummets and goes to a 1x. But again, it's just going through those motions. I think, again, it's looking more at the longer term picture, and trying to look at it from a long-term viewpoint and not in the moment. Oh no, today it's down, I need to go and change stuff. It's just having the stamina. And I think this is what it is. It's having the stamina, even for all these businesses, whether it's lead gen or not. I think if you don't have the stamina, if you don't have the understanding of the financials, the business, the profits, and so forth, it's going to be a roller coaster for any business owner. But you just need to have the appetite for the aspects that you can't control as well. And there's elements to this whole marketing and advertising that we can't necessarily control. The reality is we're all advertising on different platforms that we don't own. So it's important that we focus again on having your own ecosystem, bringing people into a system where you can own the customer. I own just having numbers and emails just to contact them and so forth. But yeah, it's a fun game, if I can call it that. But it definitely does require one to have stamina to keep on going forward.
100%. Yeah, man. I think looking at PAC, it's like we're having a good year so far with both the e-com brands that Manda was referring to. But the reality is, like, that does come with its challenges, right? And I think every level unlocks new challenges. That's really just what it boils down to. We've got Nerta, South Africa. Hi, can you advise a standard ROAS or a good POAS? We are an average of about 6 for 3 months. So if you're saying that you've got a 6x ROAS for the last 3 months, then that's really good. But it's all relative, right? I know I talk about this a lot on my YouTube channel. I don't like giving feedback in a binary fashion or a binary way where it's like this or that. This is good, this is bad. That doesn't exist. If any marketer or agency owner or someone goes and says, this is right, this is wrong, purely based on a single sentence, then I feel like you're leaving. There's a 50% chance of a probability that the answer is probably wrong too, purely because of the fact that you don't address all the nuances and there's maybe not always enough context. So when it comes to ROAS, like, every industry is different. We all see that the meal prep industry, for example, you can get 10 to 15x ROAS. That's amazing. And if they had to drop below 10 or 8, then it's actually not profitable for them. But then another marketer will tell you, what do you mean it's not profitable? It's amazing, you're killing it. And it's like, no, not really, because my industry, that's the norm. So it all depends on the industry, really, and also the product that you're selling. And we've also seen the lower the ticket item that you're selling, the lower the ROAS normally will be too. So it's like, and the higher the ticket item, the higher the ROAS might be. Then there's also the barrier to actually buying the product. For example, what other psychological issues might be at play that is preventing people from saying yes to buying the product, regardless of the price? And the more friction there is from that point of view, the lower the ROAS might be. So there's all these nuances that people don't really talk about when it comes to ROAS. And I like to talk about the nuances because that's where the most amount of value lies. It's like when you start to understand these variables and how to control them and match them accordingly, or work with them accordingly in order to match what you need for your business in order to succeed, that's when life gets really interesting. So if you've got a 6x ROAS, I think it's amazing. Keep doing what you're doing, but how much profit are you actually making back on that, right? So if you're putting 1,000 Rand into ads or 10,000 Rand into ads, you're making 60,000 back. If your gross profit margin is 50%, then half of that is profit. So 30% is profit. So what's your operating expenses? So how your operating expense is probably going to be, more than that. So you're not most likely not making profit. And it's not because the ROAS is not healthy. It's just because you're not spending enough on ads. We've seen this, Gil and I, we've learned this lesson years ago, but it's like not just about the ROAS metric, because this is what we talk about. ROAS is also vanity sometimes. It's a very key component to understanding whether you're profitable or not. But you can have a 10x ROAS, but if you're spending 10K a month and making 100K, but your operating expenses is 100K, then you're breaking even on a 10x ROAS. That doesn't mean you need 11x ROAS. It means that you need to spend more money on marketing to get 20 grand in marketing spent. That will mean that you make 200 grand. And now the operating expenses, including cost of goods, might be 140, 150, 160. So now you're making 40K profit, even though the ROAS stayed the same. So in theory, ROAS is just an indication of how profitable the ads are, but it's not an indication of how profitable the business is. I think that's a big mistake people make. ROAS is an indication of how profitable the ads are, not the business. So if you want to make the business profitable, you're going to have to spend more money and hopefully get the same ROAS. But we've seen, like, the more you spend, the lower the ROAS gets. You know, we can spend 10K and get 5x ROAS, but then you spend 100K and you get a 2 or a 3x ROAS. But then the matter is not that the ads are the issue. It's that's just the normal how these platforms work. And then it's a matter of also understanding that you're putting money in the bank, not percentages, because people will go, I need a 500% return on my ad spend, but that means nothing if you're not putting profit back into the actual business. You're not banking percentages, you're banking rands, if that makes sense. I'm not sure if you guys want to add anything to that.
No, it's also just like, I think it's like also the more you spend in ad spend, the hungrier the account becomes for creative and, you know, innovation. So I think that's also a very good point to drive home.
Gil knows. I think he's lost half of his bald head is half of his bald head is.
As you can tell, right? It's slowly at the top here. Good thing you guys see what's actually.
No, it's like, I mean, for some of the businesses that we own, I mean, we spend probably close to, I mean, we're probably going to spend like close to 1 million to 1.5 on one of the businesses. And I think per month, guys, not per year, per month. And I think that requires just an intense amount of creative testing because people say, oh, you have to run the ad for 4 or 5 days or 2 weeks before you can really make a decision. It's not about the time. And we've had this conversation, Gil. It's not about the time. It's about the data.
Yep.
It's not about the time the ad runs. It's about how much data the ad collects. And if you're going to run an ad at 10 Rand a day, guess what? It's going to take a long time to collect the data in order to make a good decision. Mm-hmm. But if you're going to let the ad run at 10K a day, one ad, then you can get that data within literally 4 or 5 hours. Obviously variables at play like weekends and different times of the week. And there's psychological, like is it mid-month or over payday and stuff like that makes a difference. But it comes down to the amount of data that you're actually generating. Cool. Isaac says, from Durbanville, welcome, by the way. Any marketing advice for manufacturers in agriculture industry? Google or Meta ads or both? Agriculture. So we mainly D2C. I'm not going to pretend like I know much about agriculture, but I think if you're selling agriculture products to, let's say, farmers, then I think Google will be the best bet, to be honest with you, because people go there to look for certain products. So hopefully you have a product that people already need. And if they need it, they're hopefully aware of the fact that they need it. Therefore, they might be going to Google in order to search for it. And therefore, Google Ads might be a good option because you can target that intent. I mean, you can do meta remarketing maybe, or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, definitely meta remarketing. But it needs to be people like remarketing people that's visited your website, engage with your socials, etc. That's what I would use Meta for. And then Google would be the primary there to drive quality people to the site that you can retarget with Meta.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that you're not going to get success on Meta if you did that as a complete strategy in itself. But the reality is, like, I don't know who you're targeting. So I'm assuming you're targeting farmers. You can still find them on Facebook. That all depends on the product. Yeah, you can find them on Facebook, but I think the safest bet would be to try and target the intent.
Yeah, intent.
I'm assuming you're on a limited budget, and you can't have the luxury of doing everything at once. So Luane says, how can you optimize your Facebook leads so that your adverts reach your correct target audience? So I'm assuming she's saying, how can you optimize the Facebook ads to get better leads? Quality, I think is actually what she might be saying. Luana, you can just correct me if that is actually what you meant. So there's another question on also lead form ads, so we can maybe bring that in here. Vix, we've spoken about this on a podcast on the YouTube channel. If you guys have seen, you can just look for Jandre de Beer, the YouTube channel, and you'll find conversations with myself, Gilbert, and many other people. Maybe just touch on lead forms and what people can do in order to get better leads, maybe from a targeting standpoint or maybe from a qualification standpoint.
Oh, was that addressed to me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. I think the thing is, like, it comes down to your strategy and your business. I know a lot of people like going broad initially. especially with lead gen. These days, since the Facebook algorithm has evolved quite a bit, and going broad is a legit strategy that you can do from a targeting and interest targeting perspective if you set up your targeting underneath the ad set level of your campaign. But like, we normally recommend starting with interest targeting instead if you're struggling to dial in, your ideal audience. So start with one or two interests in your particular niche or area, or in your business kind of like industry, and then from there you can start testing. Like, if you, for instance, a home improvement business, and you sell something like interior design or whatever, there's physically an interior design interest that you can go and target, and I suggest starting with that. And then from there you can dial it in. And I think your messaging on your ads is also really important. So you need to make sure that you address very specifically who you are trying to reach, because Facebook optimizes creative according to who you address in your creatives. So if you don't address the correct people in your creatives, and if it's vague creatives for some reason, and your ad copy doesn't really speak to the person that you're trying to attract, Facebook's also going to have a hard time optimizing your ads to reach the right people. So it's a combination of starting with the right targeting combination and making sure that your creative and your copy is addressed to the correct people that you're trying to attract. I hope that makes sense. I don't know if you guys want to give more context to that, because
I think you touched on something very important, and Gil and I have mentioned this before, is that the AI is really actually focusing on the ad, especially if you're doing Advantage Plus. It's depending so much on the website copy and the ad copy and the video itself. Like, there was a podcast I listened to, and we know this, but it was just reaffirming it. And it was saying, like, if you're using a video ad, make sure to have subtitles because the AI reads it. If you have a video ad, make sure to say what you need to say in the video specifically to improve the algorithm, because the AI listens to it, because it transcribes it in itself, and then uses that as an indication of who it should be targeting in order to match that level of copy. So, and then obviously your headline, your blurb, the subtitles, the video itself, and what's said in the video, all of those things can help improve the algorithm and the AI. And I think that was pretty interesting, because it's something that people don't really think about.
Yeah, and I'm glad that Vix, you actually also mentioned about the targeting, because at this point, I think a lot of marketers are doing broad and doing Advantage Plus and so forth, obviously because it's something that we're seeing working, yes, but then it's also that thing of everybody's saturating this particular aspect, and then they're leaving the opportunity actually on an interest base. And you actually mentioned it, because that obviously also helps with regards to your targeting. You're actually giving yourself an advantage by actually putting in the interest itself, because you're also helping Facebook, by the way, to actually go and find you those people. And in some cases you might find that it ends up being cheaper, to be honest, to actually do interest, because not everybody's doing it anymore. They're all rushing for the new feature of Advantage Plus and just using the algorithm. So I think it's also important that one must do, especially if you're starting out, testing out interest specifically for your audiences. Give them the feedback back to the AI and so forth to help you even further improve your results. So yeah, that's always important to still use as a method.
Love it, man.
Yeah, I think the last point on that.
Sorry, moved on to the next question.
I think it's important to highlight this, but like, I know there's Advantage Plus and all of that you can use when you set up your audience, but like, what we like, I've find myself, and like, just also teaching in some of the coaching sessions that I have been teaching people just to go back to the original audience settings in Facebook and actually switch it back, and then going to the interest targeting, because like there's been many cases where people have actually activated Advantage Plus for a local area or a local business, and then it's automatically expanded the radius of the targeting, which was interesting. I'm like, why would it do that since you've selected the radius? But I think Facebook is trying to get better results for the campaign, and that's why it's automatically probably expanding the area that you've selected. So that's been quite a huge kind of like thing. I was like, that's not ideal. Like, you actually have to then select.
Yeah, you actually have to turn the thing off. By default, Facebook is actually implementing AI optimizations to just happen automatically. Like, we've seen it on some of the e-commerce accounts where Advantage Creative, something like that, it literally is by default turned on. So every single account automatically just starts doing optimizations for you. And if you don't go into the settings and know where to look to actually turn it off, it starts continuing to, do its own thing. And then the results, you start wondering why they're not maybe necessarily the best or what you expected. So, but again, it's because Facebook is trying to push AI and obviously trying to say how effective it's becoming at the end of the day. And then I think it's just something that you have to take note of. Like, you actually have to go in the back end and turn the Advantage creative side of it off. I think there's probably Advantage Plus in terms of placements and stuff as well. But there's settings that are being set by default by Facebook.
I'm going to move on. Thanks, guys. That was pretty cool and interesting, and I think there's a lot of value there. Nanette says, do you think funnels are still relevant today? Our bottom of funnel barely ever works, but we get plenty of add to carts. So it depends on how you define funnels. Are you saying media buying funnels or Facebook funnels in terms of top of funnel, middle funnel, bottom funnel targeting? Or are you saying funnels in terms of drive people to a squeeze page, have them opt in to a VSL, have them then book a call, whatever it is, or buy the product or whatever it is? So it depends on how you define funnels. But let me assume that you mean both, just because that's the best way to make sure that anybody gets some value out of that. Question specifically is, I think there's another question that actually says here, Advantage Plus versus manual targeting. So we'll highlight that in context to this question as well. So where was that question? I just want to bring it up here for a second. So what is your opinion on Advantage Plus campaigns versus manual targeting? What have you found to be the best performer? So this is very similar to Nanette's question if she's talking about Facebook funnels and the ad funnels, because we've tested Advantage Plus on separate accounts and then manual targeting. And some months we'll have better results with manual targeting, and some months we'll have better results with Advantage Plus. And if we compare the two, they actually, at least from the last data I've seen, we haven't looked at it in probably 2 or 3 months, properly, like in depth, but they much of a muchness. I suppose it depends on the industry and the product. Like some industries Advantage Plus might just kill it. And I think it depends on the complexity of the buying journey. Does that make sense? I hope I'm not losing anybody. But I think if the buying journey needs a lot of input and a lot of thought and a lot of processing, I almost feel like manual ad funnels can help, because then you can strategically show this message to people who haven't seen the ads before. You can strategically show this message to people who has seen the ad a few times and still have not converted. So you can have different layers of messaging within that funnel process. I think if you have a very complex buying journey for a customer, and if it's maybe like a high ticket product, then top of funnel, middle funnel, bottom funnel runs really well, in my opinion. But if you have a very simple product that is quite easy to understand the value, and it's something that people need, and the demand is there, and there's not a lot of competition, then Advantage Plus can probably be work amazingly well for always and forever. But I don't know if you have maybe thoughts on that before I address the other part of funnels, which is the landing pages, Gil.
Yeah, no, I was
testing those things quite extensively.
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, they're all still relevant, and you're hitting the nail on the head just in terms of like, if it's more a complicated product or high ticket item, then you likely need to be doing some education. Then yes, remarketing them with specific messaging, benefits, etc. Retargeting them makes sense, and I would also probably put that in there. But if it's more of these, impulse buys, low ticket item, 400 or 500 rand type of products, when you have an Advantage Plus, that tends to and can do quite well without having a middle funnel, bottom funnel remarketing put in place, because technically the Advantage Plus in and of itself is meant to cover those areas of remarketing as well. I've actually gone on certain sites and I know the account itself doesn't actually have physically middle funnel, bottom funnel, but then I see the ads being retargeted to me. So it does have a place, but what we've also seen is you can have Advantage Plus and you can have interest targeting, and you'll find literally it's almost like a neck on neck at certain times, and they can both perform exceptionally well. Yeah. So yeah, it also just comes down to testing.
I also think it also depends on how good you are as a marketer to actually squeeze out the most value out of manual funnels.
Yeah,
because if you're not very highly skilled, then your back in the day, your top of middle funnel, bottom funnel funnels might not be converting. And it's not because AI Advantage Plus is better. It's just because you're actually not as good at building out those funnels strategically and psychologically.
Yeah,
so there's an element of skill. If you we've been doing this for years. It's almost a decade, right? So in a way, our manual funnels might be as good as Advantage Plus funnels because I'm not trying to be funny about this in any way, shape, or form, but it's like we know how to build out those funnels because we've done it for so long, and we understand the psychological processes that people go through and what you need to say when you need to say it. Where someone else might not have that extensive knowledge, so they might say, well, the manual funnels don't work as well, and Advantage Plus is kind of like a lazy option in order to get some sales through the door. But I think in essence, you can look at it from very different perspectives. I was going to talk about the sales page funnels, but she did mention in the comments there she was talking about top of funnel, middle funnel, bottom funnel. So that's great to know. Thanks, Annette. Next question is Beanbag the brand. Hello, Beanbag the brand. That's cool. What is the actual ROAS you are getting from Meta ads for D2C companies? I know that ROAS is not all and POAS is king. Awesome. So that said, I think this touches on the question we had earlier and the answer that we gave there as well. Is it depends on the industry, depends on the product, and it depends on the amount of money that you're spending, and it depends on your competition. It depends on the complexity of the buying journey. And I would say the 3x ROAS, in my opinion, usually it is healthy. But then again, there's certain stores that will run at a massive loss if they had a 3x ROAS. So I think Beanbag the brand, if you don't mind, maybe comment. Give us an idea of what you're spending. Give us an idea of your average order value. Give us an idea of what your ROAS is currently, and then we can maybe, give us an idea of your gross profit margins. Because then we can tell you if the ROAS is healthy or not. Because that's what. This is why I get so frustrated when an agency say you need a 2x ROAS. That's really good. It's like, how? How do you know? Based on what? On an article that you've read. No, you have to get a bit deeper into the nuances in order to figure out what is actually best. So the auto lead gen form on Facebook is very poor contactability. Because you might want to disagree with this.
Yeah.
Well, you might agree with it, but then have a perspective on it in order to fix it.
Yeah, again, a lot of nuances. Depends on your business and the value of the product that you're selling. If it's normal D2C products, I would say below the 10K, 5 to 10K mark and below. Facebook forms is the best way to go. I think the way you can increase the intent of those leads and the quality of those leads is just by adding 2 or 3 questions and making sure it's a high intent form. So by 2 or 3 questions before they actually fill in their personal information. So it's like a bit of qualifying questions like where are you based? Having a bit of a budget question is always advised. And then any other question that is relevant to that business, like if it's an interior designer, maybe just telling them, what the value of your home or property is, whatever the case may be. That's going to help you just increase the intent of those lead form leads. But again, if it's a higher value product, like, solar system or, home improvement, like kitchen remodeling, or I don't know, like just giving examples, that is above 10K as an investment, I think you're better off going just straight to a funnel and, showing your job, showing before and afters. And again, like giving more information just about the service or product that you are selling. I think that's the best way to increase the intent if it's a more expensive, lead generation based business or local business or whatever the case may be. So that's at least what works best on our end, and what we recommend.
Amazing, man. Thank you for that. All right, we've got Sia here. He says, my question is, which funnel would you say is better for a medium-sized B2C service business like an aesthetic spa? Oh, I love how specific this question is. Thank you. Like this is great when you have a couple of details like that, because then you can give a better answer. So just to repeat that, my question is, which funnel would you say is better for a medium-sized business, B2C service business like an aesthetic spa? Is it an ad to a form that you submit, call from a receptionist owner, then nurture with an email SMS sequence to keep warm, or add lead form, automated WhatsApp sequence, then nurture with email WhatsApp sequences to keep warm? We're a small lead gen agency, and for most of our clients, we use the former, but we encounter challenges with conversion side of things as we feel.
So I like the former one that you've mentioned. That's definitely the best way. Then that's how we do it as well, to a large extent. I think it's just the first thing you should do through your automation, and especially if it's WhatsApp automation, because the response rates are really good through that, is you need to get an action out of people in that first WhatsApp that you send. Like you need to kind of like, I think a lot of people are too passive in how they handle and nurture those leads. I think, and I'm not saying get a booking, I'm just saying get feedback from that particular customer on what their issues are and what you're trying to solve, because you still need to sell that booking, right? Like you can't just assume that they'll book as soon as they've become a lead. So it's like, what information do you need to extract out of that client in order for them, like, how can you get them to, say what they're struggling with or why they've inquired? And then from there, you have a lot more context to nurture that lead through. If you get feedback out of them, like for the cleaning company as well, what we do is we immediately ask people as soon as they've become a lead, what can we give you a quote on? Please list it. Please list, like, do you want to clean your couch? Just like, we immediately get them to say, hey, I want a quote on X, Y, Z. And then that immediately gets us to then, send them a quote and call them, and we can really get specific on what we're selling them on. So I think that's a common mistake that I've also seen in just nurturing sequences, and, at least what we recommend from that perspective. Hope that helps in any way.
Yeah, I think Armando, it does. Thanks, Vix. I think Armando just says, thanks, Vix. I do for the dusted dollies, and I was able to get up to 150K a month. Nice. That's solid.
Nice. I assume that's revenue.
Nice. Tanya says, what is the period to plan to obtain a better ROAS for a new e-commerce store? As most it spent on awareness and building trust with customers. So I'm just going to read this again. What is the period to plan? What is the period to plan to obtain a better ROAS for a new e-commerce store, as most it's spent on awareness and building trust with customers? So here's my take on this, right? I remember back in the days when we ran awareness ads and then we retargeted people with intent sales ads. Like, I think gone are the days of running awareness ads, right? Unless you're like a big brand who wants to ensure that you just pop up into people's feeds repetitively. It's almost just not as ROI positive anymore for a small business to do awareness ads. Like, if you have a limited budget, anything less than 50K a month or 100K a month, I don't think you're going to get any value out of awareness ads. Like, I don't think awareness, that when people say, I'm just going to build some awareness. Okay. Do you know that with your $5,000, you're going to reach, let's say, hypothetically 20,000 people? And out of those 20,000 people, none of them will ever remember the ad that they've seen or the product. 1% of them might engage with the actual ad, right? So now you've got 2,000 people. And after they've engaged, 99% of them will most likely never remember the logo, the name, or anything that you've said in the ad. There's just so much noise in the world that I feel awareness ads is a waste of money, unless you're purely doing it for the sake to stay top of mind, and you have the patience to stick it out for 2 years and run those ads repetitively in people's feeds, where people start to recognize the brand and what you do and who you are. Like, so what I'm trying to say, and I'm not sure if you agree with me here, Gil, specifically on the e-com side, is that there's no more need to run awareness ads, because there's so much noise in the market that if you have a limited budget, you'll almost be wasting that. And it's almost ROI positive to just switch to a sales campaign, like a sales objective campaign, where you actually run ads specifically for people who have buying intent, because those awareness ads are probably not being shown to people with buying intent. To find people with buying intent with a sales campaign and just build awareness under the right audience with that intent. Because by having your middle funnel or your remarketing bottom funnel, or even your Advantage Plus campaign run independently, the awareness will come naturally in itself under a smaller amount of people, but the right people with buying intent, as opposed to the people who don't have buying intent. What's your thoughts on that?
Save yourself the investment and put that money towards conversion ads. Actually, the conversion ads themselves are awareness. You're still reaching a large population, depending on how much you're spending. You're still reaching the population. They're still coming into contact with your brand. The messaging can be tailored to people that have never seen your brand. And at the end of the day, even if you were running specifically conversion ads to try and get sales, that is making your brand aware to people that are interested and are interested enough to even buy the product itself. So especially also because, small business starting out, every penny counts, so to speak. And I think you want to ensure that you can get the best bang for your buck. You want to really measure the sales and the ROI for your business and these platforms you're investing in. So the best way and the quickest way to rather do it is to use the ability or the capabilities that these platforms provide you, which is the ability to generate sales and take the sales feedback and improve on that. And that in and of itself will start helping you already improve the return on ad spend. There isn't necessarily a plan, a timeline on when you need to shift from awareness to, we used to do that a long time ago. We don't really do that now anymore, like Jay has said. It's really just, let me put some great ads together. Let me put a great offer together. Let me show people how amazing our product is and why it's a solution they're looking for. And let me run ads to that. That is the best thing I believe you should.
So Tanya says, perhaps to clarify my question, it's not awareness ads. What I meant is that it's a new brand and business, so people take time to trust buying from you. So what would be our go-to to build trust and credibility instantly, Gil, under a new business that's running ads? I think that's actually what she's asking.
So what you can easily do is the content that you're going to produce, the videos, maybe shooting something on your smartphone, introducing people to the service or to the product, showcasing what it is that you have on offer. How is this transforming people's lives? How is it making them better, more efficient, making their lives easier? What is it that you are now bringing to the market that people have never heard of, people have never engaged with? I say video because video allow you to articulate and to really give a much better picture of what it is that you are presenting versus just a still image. And they don't really know you, like you're saying. People engage with people. So, and I hope you're not too stage fright, but I mean, you can use, maybe you don't necessarily have to be yourself, but I think it's like, how can we position ourselves with the content that we can produce and give people a feel and understanding of our brand and who we are and what we stand for and why we're bringing a solution to the table that they might be seeking out. And just running video ads, I'm not saying you can't run images or stills on them. You can, but I think it's how best can you communicate what it is that you offer. And I think you can do a really good job with a simple smartphone, a bit of a idea around how you want to communicate with whom in the video, and just kind of put something small and 1 minute video together just to introduce your brand and what it is that you're delivering to the market. And run ads, run those ads. You can put some nice copy together and just start running those ads. Yes, you're gonna also maybe then have possibly some remarketing, depending on if it is a high price point. You might want to do some remarketing ads as well, to create more of that awareness, but a repetitive awareness, so that they can get to engage and get more frequented with the brand. And that in and of itself will start slowly but surely. Familiarity creates trust. So as they start seeing you more, especially with the remarketing as well, then they start becoming more familiar, and they start becoming more familiar. They start to trust you, and then they want to engage and hopefully buy from you. So that's what I would do.
Even if we had to simplify it, right? What's the quickest way to build trust? Like if there was one thing that you think will contribute the most to trust, right? I don't have the data in front of me, but I can tell you now, it's other people's feedback on the product.
True.
Right? I mean, that's why people navigate to the review section immediately when they look at a product on Takealot or Amazon or whatever.
Yeah.
So my response to, sorry, I can't remember her name now, Tanya, would be to get the product in people's hands and get them to review it. Honestly, give them proper feedback. And the moment you've got like 10 reviews, 10 to 20 reviews on the store, then things start to shift because there's an actual legitimate reviews, not fake reviews, like legitimate reviews, verified buyers. The moment you can get there, things start to change a little bit because people are looking at it going, hey, other people are buying it and having a good experience. Nobody wants to, this is my quote, and I'm going to trademark it, but it's like, nobody wants to be the first person to buy a product unless it's an iPhone. The new iPhone, right? It's like, if it's not a new iPhone or a new type of Samsung or whatever has come out from a technology space from a brand that we trust, then you don't want to be the first person to buy it because you don't know what you're going to get. So if your product is, if your product is new and nobody knows about it, then nobody wants to be the first person to try it out and hope for the best because it's a gamble. So that you offset that risk and that gamble by other people bragging about it and about how awesome it is. So that's just a perspective that we can share there. Next question is from Daryl. Okay, guys, so we've got literally 5 to 10 minutes left max. So if you've got a question, we're going to try and run through this. Let's try and keep this short and sweet to see if we can fit everybody in. Most real estate agents are dinosaurs. I agree. I think we can all agree that digital ads are the way to go as we move forward. More is spent on flyers and the materials with no way to track it. Correct. What would you say is the best way to partner with all the ways of marketing with the new age? Obviously, main thing is the agents calling the leads and following up with majority lack. So, I mean, we 50% shareholders in a company called Digital Agents that teaches real estate agents on how to use modern technology in order to improve their businesses. That's headed up by Wandile. And Darren, I don't know if you've seen Real Estate Agents or Wandile at all. Like he's quite clued up in this space, and he does quite a good job. The quickest way is like they know cold calling is important. They know calling leads is important. So is there a way that you can incorporate AI calling, a voice assistant into the mix? WhatsApp automations, because these people communicate on WhatsApp a lot. So WhatsApp automations. I think from my point of view, a lot more companies are advertising on Meta. So it's just like making sure that people are doing that and then aggressively following up, not passively, aggressively, and having email systems and WhatsApp automation systems in place in order to make that happen. So I think to mix the two is like calling is not going away. So can you use AI in order to scale calling, whether it's cold calling outbound or just calling leads that obviously inquired? I think outside of that, WhatsApp automations, email automations, and then lead forms, like lead form ads, they work. They do work. It's just what you do post the lead form ad, and obviously also the questions, the type of questions you ask in the lead form ad, as we discuss always.
I think a lot of...
Go for it, Vic. Sorry,
Jandre. I don't know. Go for it.
No, I just said we need to get Wandile on the show, maybe to do a real estate thing. Maybe at some point we'll ask him to join us.
Yeah. But I think what I wanted to highlight is a lot of people look at lead form ads and collecting leads as, it's like they think somehow the lead quality is always going to be great for every single lead that you collect. And the reality is, depending on your industry and business, 5 to 10% of the leads are actually going to convert up front. For real estate, probably a lot less than that. And it's about having that nurturing system in the back end to, nurture those leads and to build that database and have the backend system do the heavy lifting over a number of months and years. And I think what you're also referring to, Darren, is you're mentioning an outbound system, and then probably because cold calling is an outbound system. Inbound system, I suppose, is flyers and traditional marketing stuff that you're doing, because that's people seeing you and then contacting you. So I think it's also just replacing your inbound system with a bit of a digital strategy. Because the thing is, like, you now get tangible leads that you can nurture. So it's a much better strategy than doing flyers and all of that stuff. So I would just replace my outbound with my inbound strategy with something that's more digital, and then have a proper system behind that. You're still going to have to call those leads and work those leads and whatnot, just like you do. But I think it's just a lot better.
100%. We've got, I think this is Saya again. He says, this is the last time I bug you. Do you have a coaching program of sorts? Because I heard Vic speaking about students in the Agency Giants podcast. Could really use an experienced mentor to bounce ideas off, questions, etc. Yeah, I mean, you can reach out. We can introduce you to the elite community that we have. which is a community that we started recently. And there's a couple of students in there. Vix, I'm wondering, Sia, if you want to contact us, you can just email us and we can introduce you to it. Email Jandre@v8media.co.za, or vix@v8media.co.za. You can just contact us via the email that you might have received today for the live or whatever. We can introduce you to this. We've got a community. It's $4.97 a month. And we're starting to actually build up that community of marketers, business owners, and just enjoying the conversations within that community itself. So $4.97 a month, I think it's a good deal. But yeah, we're not here to sell that to anybody. We're here just to answer some questions. So HC Water Solutions and Projects says, good day, Team HC Water Online. How would you rate 2,000 link clicks on Google Ads? What is the percentage of conversions from these amount of clicks within the 30-day period? So I think you're probably referring to lead conversions, or I don't know. I'm assuming you're generating leads for your water business. I don't know if you're selling things online or if it's a lead generation initiative. But I mean, a safe bet is always 1%. Like at least you need to be generating 1% of those people into customers. So if you've got 2,000 people, hopefully you've got like, I don't know, 220 customers or leads. Depending on, obviously, leads will be a higher percentage of conversion rate. You might have a 5% conversion rate on leads, but then only a small percentage of those people become customers. But for any business, I think 1% will be great. So if you've got 2,000 link clicks, hey, you should be having 20 new customers a month. So the question is that what's happening at the moment or not? Let's move on. I don't know if there's anything you guys want to add, just jump in. I'm just doing this for time. What is the opinion on Advantage Plus campaigns versus manual targeting? I think we've spoken about this before. We've covered that. Thank you. We found our manual targeting with Advantage audience to work the best. There we go. Boom. Told you guys. Armando says, I know Advantage Plus works everything, but do you know what your ideal customer looks like over time? Well, we actually discussed this in a podcast last year. Gil, remember, we said Advantage Plus is really cool. It's awesome, but you don't learn much about your ideal customer. Like you don't know, you're not improving the actual feedback of who they are. And because if you're on a Meta, and even on Google, you can still do this. You can see it's male, female, it's this age, it's this interest. And I'm sure on the report side, there's some indication, but I mean, you don't know what these people are really interested in. So you can't go and create interest or you can create lookalikes based on purchases and stuff like that, but you don't know. If someone had to ask you, you'd be like, if you had to ask me, what are the people who buy, what is the exact interest of the people who buy from, for example, Sentimental? Other than fragrances, I don't know. Like other than fragrances, we don't know. Like obviously there's some campaigns that we test out and we can spitball, but I'm referring to Advantage Plus campaigns in isolation here. So if we had to look at Advantage Plus in isolation and you had to ask us, what are the interests of these people? We wouldn't know. So there's a bit of a feedback disconnect, I suppose, right?
Well, you can try and reverse engineer it from the ads perspective on what your best performing ads are, but I mean, like it's not going to be very specific and to the point.
It's all subjective. Yeah, it's subjective conclusions that you're going to be making, right? I mean, and if you're experienced, hopefully you're making accurate conclusions, but for people starting a new business not knowing, you don't know. You're going to have to look at the customers and phone them. Like I think a lot of people phone their customers and get feedback from them, and you're going to start to see, as the sales come in, you're going to start to see, hey, this is Sarah, she lives in this place, and you're going to start to maybe see a trend. This is a white female or a black female, or this is for the Muslim community, or this is for the Jewish community. You're going to start making those connections based on who buys from you after they've bought. But you're not going to have a ton of data unless you actually explore it manually and finding out more by doing a survey or something with the customers that you have. All right. Tabo says, what insights can you share about ideal audience sizes and ad performance metrics on hyper-local real estate campaigns? I'm currently running Meta lead gen ads targeting a specific neighborhood. After 3 days, I'm seeing the frequency to 3 to 5 plus already without any conversions. Should I continue testing different creatives, or should I cut the area from my targeting altogether? I'm going to leave that question up there.
Yeah,
I think.
I'll start with this
if you want me to. Yeah, I think just it's like there's variables here, right? So, but I think like creatives is a big thing, especially if the audience size is small. But Vix, you do a lot of GEO targeting on the lead gen side for businesses. What should the average audience size be if you don't want to run into fatigue quickly?
Yeah, my question is like, why is it so hyper local? Like, I think that's just my first question. Like, there has to be a very good reason for that, because otherwise, like,
He's probably trying to
I
sell
think
a
that's the
house in that
question.
specific area, right? So if you're trying to sell a house in that specific area, I
Yeah,
mean,
but
you're
like
probably
people
going to
who
look at
can
a
move
bit
in
of
a
10.
Mm.
Yeah, sure. There's probably a 10K radius,
but
but I mean, we don't know how he's defining hyperlocal, whether it's 3 kilometers or 10 kilometers. We don't know. I think with local, he doesn't mean Gauteng. I think with hyperlocal, he means the 5 to 10 kilometer radius that you're able to target. Yeah.
Yeah,
Around
I
the
think
neighborhood.
3 to 5, like as soon as it gets close to the 3, like especially for Legion, close to the 3 frequency range, it's like your performance will definitely start dipping and it will start to level out. So ideally you want to like have your campaigns below that, otherwise it either means you're just spending too much on that particular campaign, because like there's an influx point where, you know, the spend versus return is just not going to warrant, like, be worth it for you to do. So it's also gauging that, but again, like, you always want to have a big enough area of, like, I think at least 2 to 300,000 people, but this also depends on what area you're targeting, and what budget you put behind that, because small area, big budget, you know, you're going to run into issues. But yeah, man, I mean, I don't really know how to give a specific answer without really knowing why it has to be so hyper local, but I think you can broaden that area probably and get better results.
For clarity, if we had to target, Gil, if we had to run ads for a beauty clinic, which is obviously in theory to Tabo's definition hyperlocal, what would the audience size be normally? Ideal audience size be?
Depends on the area, but about 200-300.
Okay, 1,000. Obviously.
Yeah.
So what would the spend be then?
And then the spend would not be more than 10K a month, I'd say.
Yeah.
Like, and that keeps it quite stable. And then obviously we switch out creative and different offers and whatnot within that area as well. So it's not just running the one thing. But again, if you see a massive dip in, you know, your cost per lead and frequency is at 3 or 4, you know that that a massive dip, meaning a spike, an increase in lead cost, then you should be either spending less or increase your audience radius. And if that's not possible, just spend less on that campaign, and that's pretty much you maxing that out. I think you can try different ad angles and whatnot, but it's also like not overly doing that, because you might also just waste your time, and you might be getting the right context across the first time around. It's just not enough people in that area.
Makes sense.
This is an interesting question. What about ads to get followers? Is it a waste?
No, I think
I've seen businesses with 10 followers and still make a ton of sales. Well, not a ton, but I'm just saying they still make sales even with 10 followers or with 15 followers. So again, it's like, what do you, what do you want the followers for? Is it because psychologically, I need to show 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 following my page, because I know consumers are going to not, like you said, Jay, not going to be the first ones to be like, this brand over here, there's no one else here but myself. I'm going to be the first one to probably ever try or follow this page. Clearly, it's not that significant. Therefore, I don't think I want to follow it at all. But then again, why are they following the page? What is it, to get valuable content? Or are you trying to sell them something? What does it really matter, I think, as well? But strategically speaking, having followers, all right, especially if you're trying to sell products, when they visit your profile pages and they see that there's 2,000, 3,000, 6,000, the likelihood of them wanting to potentially follow you or to potentially do business with you is much higher, because there's validity that this business has something going for it, and maybe I should actually pay attention and check it out.
Yeah, I think my touch, and I think Vix, you and me agree on this because we've discussed this in person. So I think my statement is pay whatever you need to pay in order to get to like 2,000-3,000 followers, 5 ideally if you can. Then you've got a psychological connection with then you've got like a psychological barrier that someone reaches around trust and credibility around the business. So if you can get to let's say 3,000 to 5,000 followers, then immediately it's a stamp of approval and confirmation that this is legitimate business, subconsciously to the customer or the consumer looking at the product or service. Okay, so that's what. So if you've got 10, you're going to have to work a little bit harder on the product in order to sell it. That's what you'll say. Like a lot of companies still make a decent amount of money, even though they have very little followers. But you make life a little bit easier for yourself once you get to that 5,000 mark. And there's like the barrier. It's like almost like, I think like it's almost like the psychological barrier. The moment you've got more than 5,000 people, it's like, okay, this is legit. Like 1,000 is still cool, but it could be all friends and family and a bunch of random people. But once you've got 5,000, that's like, okay, cool, this must be legit. People do like this, and people do enjoy the content, and the business is a real thing that's happening. So, all right, guys, I think that's it for today. We're going to have to shoot, unfortunately. Appreciate everybody tuning in, and there was a nice little engagement here. I think, yeah, I want to say thank you so much for your time. And join us every Thursday, 11. We'll be live, and I'll be sending emails for those, obviously, in the email list as well, to remind you guys we really enjoyed this, and this is what it's all about. So, Gil, Vix, thanks for your time. Thanks for joining. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Thanks, guys.
Much
It was
love.
good.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Bye.